I just analyzed 5 months of intake data from a major criminal defense firm. 3,492 calls. Every transcript, every outcome, every dollar that came in, and every dollar that didn't. What I found will change which cases you go after, how you talk about price, and how your team sells over the phone. Because there's one type of caller that converts at almost 3 times the rate of any other. There's one day of the week where literally 0 leads close, and there's a single moment in every call where you lose 1 in 3 deals you should have won. Today, I'm going to give you the big 6 patterns, and in the rest of this series, we'll go deep into each one. Let's get into it. Finding one is the weekend black hole. So let's start with the worst one, because most of you are going to recognize this immediately. Of the 3,492 calls in the dataset, I pulled out everything that came in on a Saturday or a Sunday. So there were 37 weekend calls on average. And during the weekdays, around 1 in 9 calls qualify as a lead. So 37 divided by 9 equals 4. That means they're leaking 4 qualified leads every single weekend. But weekend callers can sometimes be more urgent and ready to hire. So the fix for this is we implemented an after hours auto routing service. We use Blazio. They bill you only for qualified leads, $18 to $20 typically. Finding 2 is the mum gap. So next one, I went through every call and tagged who was actually on the phone. Was it the defendant, the person being charged, or was it a third party calling on their behalf? A parent, a spouse, a sibling, a friend. Well, family members who call on behalf of the defendant qualify at over twice the rate of the defendant themselves. 44% versus 21%. That's not a margin. That's 2 completely different buyers calling about the same case. Why does this happen? Well, the family are usually calmer, they have context, they can take notes, and they can pay. The defendant may be in booking, they're rushed, confused, or unable to buy. So the fix is, you want to get your intake team to say, is this you or about someone else? That should be the first thing that they say on the intake call, and then you need 2 separate, well-crafted scripts to funnel them into the sale differently because they're a different type of buyer. Finding 3 is the jail cell channel. The single highest converting call source in the entire dataset wasn't Google, it wasn't Facebook, it wasn't even referrals, it was a jail phone. 57 calls in the dataset came either from a jail phone or were about someone currently in custody. Of those, 47% qualified as real leads, almost half. To put that in context, the average qualification rate across all calls is 11%. Jail cell calls convert at 4 times that. Because when you're in jail, you need a lawyer. You're not comparison shopping, you're not shopping around, and the front desk treats them as a priority. What we did when we found this data was to say to the front desk, treat every single call like it's a jail cell call. Be urgent, be on it, be on the case, try to get them to convert, because if we do that across all of the calls in our data set, the results are going to skyrocket. Finding 4 is the probation trap. So now the opposite. The biggest topic in the dataset that doesn't actually pay. There were 332 probation calls. So as I said, it's the biggest topic in the dataset, biggest volume, but only had an 18.1% qualification rate. DWI has closer to a 60% qualification rate. Search volume looks attractive, but revenue quality is much lower. A lot of these callers are already in the system. Maybe they're not looking for full representation and they're just shopping around looking for free advice. So for this particular client, what we did was deliberately underinvest in probation and funnel those resources and funnel that money into DWI, which has a higher qualification rate. Finding 5 is the bond window. This is the moment in the data set where everything works. It's calls that mention bond or bail. There were 116 calls, 35% qualified, and only 1 was missed. These calls convert at 3 times the average. Why? Because they have the trifecta. They're urgent, usually it's the family member calling on their behalf, and they're cash ready and ready to go. That's the ideal intake call. So one thing I thought about when it came to the bond callers was, could we build this out into a full-on funnel? because one thing we did for criminal defense was to build a traffic ticket funnel. And what that was a system whereby we captured low ticket traffic tickets and funneled them into felony retainers via upsells. Bond callers can kind of work in a similar way, because if you can make the economics work on the front end and capture more of these leads, you could maybe upsell those into higher ticket retainers. So we're always looking for opportunities whereby we can convert small cases into bigger ones. And because we have success doing this with traffic tickets, when I looked at this data, I was like, could we replicate that for bond callers as well? And we're currently building out a funnel to do that right now. Now for the final finding, finding 6, the $3,329 wall. This is the last finding. So this one's about timing, and specifically where price enters the conversation. So I pulled every single call where intake quoted a fee. The median quoted fee price was $3,329. Now listen to this. When price comes in, qualification rate drops from 60% to 24%. For example, with DWI. I found the front desk were quoting the price too early. What I got them to do was build rapport before asking for the price. One easy technique to think about is you wouldn't go into the doctor's office and they'd be like, oh, your knee's broken, without even looking at you, right? They'd ask you questions. What hurts? What is the problem? What are you trying to fix? How does it feel when you walk on it, for example? So I got the front desk to think about it in these terms. You want to ask your prospects, what's wrong? What problem are they facing? What pain are they in? What are they trying to solve? And then after you've built that rapport and you understand how you can fix it, that's when you prescribe your price and your fix and your solution. And that way you're going to convert a lot more of the prospects who come in into actual sales. Every firm is different, but I bet 1 or 2 of these things are happening inside your firm right now. You probably have a hunch they are. In the rest of this series, I'm going to drill into each of these in detail. So subscribe and check out the next video here.